Welcome to Second Viewing, where love wins every time. I'm Dan.
I'm Kyle.
And I'm Liz.
Shaka bra. All right, so today on the show, we got our good friend Liz here. And what movie are we doing?
We're going to do Inglourious Basterds this week.
Great choice. Liz, how much does this movie mean to you? I'm just curious.
Honestly, I love this movie because it's like an ode to old film viewing. I became completely enthralled with Quentin Tarantino. This is the first film that I saw of his, completely infatuated by it. It took over my being. I loved it through and through. It was great. I loved it.
That's awesome. I think everyone kind of has that one Tarantino film that they love so much, and they go back and watch the rest of his filmography, and you gain a stronger appreciation for the one you fell in love with because you get those like small little connections. You kind of get a different vibe of like what era he's working towards, and like you see the progression between each of his like viewpoints on film because he's a film buff, right?
Well, absolutely. Yeah. And he switches like every film too. I feel like there's somebody out there that can grasp onto that specific film, and this one was the film for me, and I really loved it because it sent me back to all his previous work, and I'm still an avid fan to this day, and I just that was the film for me for sure.
That's awesome. Dan, what are your like thoughts about it?
Well, I like that. I kind of like that he brings real world events into his filmmaking a couple of times, and especially in this movie.
It's a prominent time, I guess, right?
Yeah. Especially this movie. I think it fits really well. I think the addition of his aspects of the story are awesome.
Totally. I think it's a cool change of pace coming from the Kill Bills 1 and 2, and then you got Death Proof, and I think it's a big change up in terms of style choices too, because this is a movie that relies heavily on previous knowledge. I think he's the kind of guy that writes these incredible screenplays that are just his own imagination, but this time he took World War II, a very familiar event, and kind of flipped it on its head.
Yeah, and I kind of think in this movie he almost found a style that he really liked and sort of stuck to a similar sequence in his films to come.
It was definitely like a retelling of something that was very true to so many people. He retold it. He was very adamant about that. This is a new telling of a story that everyone knows that happened. Right. They know the history of it. But here's my go at it. Just enjoy it for entertainment purposes. Here you go. He had a new cinematographer on this one too, which he carried on to Django with him, which I love the cinematography in this one, and it's very familiar to Django, and I didn't realize it because it's the same guy. So I mean, he took some risks, took some chances with that aspect of it, and I think he really just like nailed it on the head.
Yeah,
with that,
I kind of
sure.
think he definitely found something that he liked, and he's going with it.
I never knew that about the cinematographer, but like looking at the opening scene of this film, I can totally tell like that wide shot of the field. Definitely Django reminiscent for sure. Yeah, that's really cool. So I guess what we're gonna do actually is we're just kind of like break up this movie into chapters because this film actually is broken up into 5 different chapters. We kind of touched on this a little bit earlier when we did the Hateful Eight episode, where he did a similar system of breaking up the movie into a certain order. So I think the best way to kind of go through the scene, the characters, and everything is just start off with chapter 1. Chapter 1 being called
Once Upon a Time in Nazi-occupied France. Yeah, which was actually the title that Quentin was going to originally go with for Inglourious Basterds. Yeah, but then he decided to change it to Inglourious Basterds, which was an old macaroni western, as they call it, which is a certain Spanish, like 1940s, 60s era of Italian filmmaking that they call macaroni spaghetti. Like
that's
film
awesome.
works.
Wow, that's cool. I know.
I didn't get that at first. I was like, what's going on here? But yeah, it's a real thing.
Only he would like allude to that, right?
Totally.
Like, only he would like go for macaroni spaghetti. Like,
absolutely. But send it back here. Send it back. He changed it to Inglourious Basterds, ARDS, and then right at the end he switches it to ERDS. Yeah. And to this day he will not tell anyone. He said, that's my creative, that's my art. That is, as an artist, you view it as a patron, you decide, but I will not let that go.
Yeah,
he would never let it go.
It's his artistic choice, and I guess the whole thing is you critique it as you want or view it as you want, but it's weird. Like, I mean, he's the kind of guy to shroud mystery, right? I mean, like, what's in the briefcase? Like, that's one of the biggest questions of all time.
Yeah.
So I think, like, even him just, like, changing a movie title last minute just to, like, fuck with everyone is great.
And also, why not? Grasp onto it. You're Quentin Tarantino. Do what you want.
Yeah. Well,
feel it out. You have all this representation with your crowd and stuff.
Yeah.
Just be you. And I think that's what people appreciate so much about Quentin. He's always him. It really doesn't change a lot. He grows, definitely.
Yeah.
But doesn't really change his style.
I definitely feel like this movie was a huge jump in quality from Death Proof, though, I would say.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And I think the opening scene of this film tells a lot with that, because, I mean, we kind of go back to, like, Quentin's, like, amazing dialogue-driven scenes, right? This film opens up with a family that is potentially going to carrying, like, Jews as hostages. And we get introduced to one of the craziest villains I've ever seen, and one of the most well-acted people I've ever seen in my entire life, on screen and off screen, because this guy is a hilarious and very witty actor, Christoph Waltz. This is his breakthrough role, obviously. He was just known as like a German actor, only did German films, had a nice charismatic like look and view to him, and Tarantino found him and said, this is the guy I'm picking, this is who's going to be in this film. And like, talk about casting. Like,
yeah. How crazy to send it back though, like originally supposed to be played by Leonardo DiCaprio.
Weird. Yeah, that
and
is
then
weird.
He grasped onto this, he's like, no, last minute, like totally, like Leonardo didn't even deny this character. He was just like, no, I don't need you anymore. See you later, until you're Monsieur Candy in another film. Yeah. Which, amazing.
We'll probably get there someday.
Yeah, absolutely. And then...
But to take a risk on an unknown German actor, that's huge. And it's just super cool that Tarantino stays true to his gut, just follows
but
his gut. But
incredibly fitting to the story, obviously. Like, he very much becomes that role. Like, he takes on another level of character acting that I think we don't see in film very often. I mean, like, Daniel Day-Lewis does that a lot, and our boy Michael Fassbender. Shaka bra. We'll get there in a little bit, though. I think you see Christoph Waltz just become this role, and you don't often see a lot of actors do that. We talked about Revenant last week, actually, and I think Leo taking in that role is a similar direction, but like you said, Leo in this role probably would have been great, don't get me wrong, probably would have pulled it off, but I could not see anyone else at this point being that character.
Would have pulled it off, yeah, definitely. Would have pulled it off, but there's something about Christoph Waltz. He grasped this character so... definitely to a point where it's like there's certain scenes in that very first scene that we open up with, it's just his face and it's his monologues, and he's just so powerful, and led them to in all the awards, led them to the win always, right, start to finish. He's the one that captivated all of us for sure.
Totally. And I think it's interesting to see him in that first scene, because you kind of get the whole range of his character within that first 20 minutes or so, because you start off seeing him be very polite, and you right off the bat get like a weird conniving.
Yeah, he gets more conniving slowly, especially when they offer him wine or like
milk.
Yeah, no, they offer him wine at the beginning, and then he insists, "Am I not at a dairy farm? I'll have the milk."
I feel like it's something you would say, honestly. I got a vibe. Seems like a thing you would say. I don't mean that in a bad way.
What are you trying to get at
I'm just saying.
What are you trying to get at?
I'm not about to. Okay, anyways, so...
How about the obsessive amounts... Earlier on, before we started this, we were talking about how Quentin wants you to recognize all of his characters right off the bat. He is proud of all of his characters that he's written. He wants you to recognize them and remember them. So, as I was mentioning earlier, Pierre Lapetit is the name of the farmer.
Yeah.
In the screenplay, he has actually a wife and 3 daughters. They totally take that out of the film entirely, and I think they do, because they want you to almost you want to feel sorry for this farmer. He doesn't have that support of the wife, so you just assume that maybe she's gone. You pass.
Well, there's a woman there that he says like go into the house, like run away. We don't really know who she is.
With your sisters, he says. So it is a sister. There's 3 sisters only, and he mentions the name Pierre Lapetit or Monsieur Lapetit. He says 14 times within the first 10 minutes of the film. So basically what he wants you to do is he wants you to recognize who it is, and also Hans Landa, the character, wants you to know, I know who you are, and this is what I'm going to put you up for.
Yeah.
I'm going to set you up for something so you know I know who you are, and I'm in control of you, just like a dog. Like, there you are sitting, I know your name, you're going to listen to me now. And he just like defines that right away at the beginning of the film.
You're right. I think it's cool to see that scene start off with this farmer and like the point of view from his perspective, but it quickly switches to Christoph Waltz's character.
Yeah.
And he mentions his I guess his metaphor between talking about Jews as rats. And later in the scene, when those people are running under the boards, they're depicted as rats, scrambling away from the scene, trying to get away. And from his point, viewing downwards onto the floorboards.
Yeah.
And his reveal of like, I know what you're doing, I know what's going on. I'm about to speak. I'm going back to French. Take my lead. Like 0 to 100, like he becomes this monster out of nowhere almost. But it's like not that you're too surprised about it. You just kind of get overwhelmed. You're like, I never want to meet this man. Like,
yeah, but he'll always overpower you. So the Monsieur Lapetit, he takes out his pipe, and then Hans Landa takes out his pipe. It's bigger. Pipe, yeah. So when he's making that comparison about rats, what I found so interesting is he said there's really no comparison. It could be a squirrel, whatever. You don't really know why. You just like them. You just dislike them. And that's when you find out the cruel nature of Hans Landa, because he has really no part in this. He enjoys his power, very OCD. Started when he's putting out his ink pots and he's like shuffling them around, making sure they're all set, and he's just all in it for himself. And that's the biggest villain, right? Kind of takes me to, if we're going back in history, like the Stalin thing, like, right?
Sure, yeah.
Hitler was known, he was on the posters, all that, but Stalin was the one that's like, I'm in this for me.
Yeah. I don't need to be known as a figure. this is what I want to do and get through with it.
Absolutely. Yeah, so that's when you're like, wow, this guy's scary. And then Hans Landa says, I'm now switching into, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's a turning point in the conversation. It's like it just ends up walking all over.
Yeah.
Your Le Petit.
He's like, my French is exhausted, even though I've just spoke French totally perfectly to you.
Yeah, and then he says, I don't want to, if the French continues, then I'll just end up embarrassing myself or something like that.
Not though. He's trying to set you, no, it's just, it's all a charade.
Yeah, right.
I'm going to turn back to my charade now, and you follow me, and then he switches back to French, and it's just, you're like, this guy's crazy. He's a psychopath for sure.
Oh, 100%. It's interesting to see him kind of take on that new character. Like, I think that's cool character development that happens in 20 seconds. Like, huge change in tone. And I guess right after that we get introduced to another main character in the film, Shoshana. We see her run away. She's
au revoir, Shoshana.
Yeah.
But he chooses not to take the shot.
But why, Dan? Why?
It's like, was he that conniving from the beginning that he knew he would run into her again? Or like, why didn't he take the shot? Because she got away? Or like she foiled him in some like small way?
But like, hop into your car and chase after her. There's this, for something in his head, I don't know if it's a big game or something, but this guy is like, he is cruel. He is the ultimate
Maybe it's he
villain.
just felt he had so much power over her. Like, I could choose to run you down and take you out, or I could choose to let you live. Like, I am that powerful.
Right. I think for me, it's that he likes everything to be very calculated. I feel like him shooting her right away or chasing her would be a bit of a rash decision, maybe. He probably could have killed her, I don't know if he really wanted to, but I feel like he is the kind of guy that he sits down and writes down his plan. Absolutely. He wants everything to be calculated directly to what he's trying to get at, and potentially maybe he just realized that, oh, you know what? I slipped a little bit, but I'm going to find her one day and I'm not going to slip.
Right. And think about this, like he went out of his way to track down, what was there? There was four Jewish families in the area, and there was a specific amount of them that had already been taken out or tracked down or killed or whatever, but he was looking for like a small number.
Just the one family left, the Dreyfuses. Out of the 4, there was one family left.
Yeah. And he, like, I'm not sure how far he came, but like definitely out of town, like out of his way.
Cow country. He says.
Yeah.
Nothing like Louis Julia Dreyfus. All right, so that pretty much closes chapter 1, I suppose, and I think that was a lot of setup for this film, kind of going back and forth, like we were talking about. We have 5 chapters here, and the first 4 kind of set up the entire movie. Yeah. And the second chapter,
a lot of contrast going on.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, dialogue heavy, but again, like near the end is when the action happens. Right, you get a bunch of soldiers into the house, and they're blasting the floorboards, like, and Shoshana's running away with blood over her face. Clearly was. Yeah. In the heat of the battle there.
Right, like you've got all these people dying and then Shoshana living. You've got the French contrast with the English, contrast with, him leveling with Pierre to him walking all over Pierre. Like a lot of contrast in that first scene.
Oh, totally. And it gets even sharper really because the next scene or the next chapter that opens up, you get Brad Pitt's character there and you have all these soldiers lined up, and that's the Bastards. And Liz, like, what are your thoughts on like this motley crew?
Okay, so on to chapter 2, The Bastards. Initially with the trailers when this film was first being advertised or sold to us as viewers, a lot of it was heavy on the bastards themselves. I mean, they're a little bit comical. There's more gimmicks to them. You know, they got a lot going on. It's
like quick. A Seven Dwarves vibe, sort of like.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you got some weird BJ Novak. I mean, that kind of threw me a little bit.
Yeah, right. I kind of hate that guy a little bit. I don't really know why.
Honestly, even when I was watching and I saw his face, it kind of took me out of the film a little bit. I'm a little, I hate to say this, I'm a little disappointed that he was there.
Okay.
During this scene.
Why does he bug you? Like, what's...
Because his character hasn't changed from when I've seen him in.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. It's way too recognizable, and even in this film, he doesn't get a lot of character development for me to think otherwise.
Yeah.
And I would completely agree with you on, like, right off the bat. As soon as you see him, you're like, what are you doing here, man? You're out of place. Brad Pitt's here with this, like, crazy accent, and he has, like, a bunch of scars on his neck, and you're like... Brad Pitt's badass right now. Like,
so during advertisements, obviously they threw up Brad Pitt quite a bit. He's a well-known actor. I get that. The cool thing that I liked that kind of took me back down was the fact that he has this scar on his neck. And I've read the screenplay a few times, but there's a rope scar on his neck. And Quentin Tarantino writes in his screenplay, a rope burn looks like it's from a lynching, but will never be discussed.
It's crazy.
The end. Like, never be discussed. I remember watching it for the first time.
Never be discussed?
Never to be discussed.
But this guy is a cinematic genius, but he's also, like, the best screenwriter, like, past, like, 50 years. Because honestly, like, that is so much detail that you don't need to include, but he just, like, it's meant there to give you some sort of imagination that you don't really think you need. Just pushes it forward.
Absolutely. And what a crazy cool monologue for Brad Pitt initially when he starts. It's just the best. I mean... He kind of foretells you what the bastards did to get there, who they are. It's basically before the rest of the world comes to help them. You know, they're going to go in there. They're going to instill some terror in with the Nazi army. Basically, that's what they're there for. And Brad Pitt's just this crazy lunatic. He snorts tobacco most of the film.
Is that tobacco? I thought...
Yeah.
What? I thought for sure it was Coke.
Yeah, but the thing is, back then it would have been tobacco. There was a specific kind of tobacco that they would have snorted. I also assume that, being modern as I am. But tobacco. And also, the first time I was introduced to Eli Roth as well, which is cool.
Right. And you really enjoyed him in this film. You went back and, like, and loved the Hostel franchise, right? And, like, pretty much anything he's done, Cabin Fever, like... Yeah,
I did. So Eli Roth was originally supposed to be played by Adam Sandler.
Thank God, Sandler.
Side note, I have to mention this really quick, is guess how much money the movie was made for?
How much?
$70 million. Guess how much Jack and Jill was made for?
$80
million. Shaka bra.
Okay, so Adam Sandler had some scheduling issues because he was doing Funny People at the time. Yeah, I know. Because you're laughing over there.
I actually love Funny People. So
it's
like the one modern Adam Sandler movie we stand by.
He can do no wrong to me, so I get it. But I'm so glad he didn't, because this film is not depicted as a comedy at all.
Right.
But I almost see it kind of as a comedy. I'm laughing at a lot of parts in this film.
Well, I can see it as a parody in a way, almost.
I get that. Yeah, for sure. So, but imagine you throw Adam Sandler in there. You would instantly instill that vote of comedy right into your mind.
You could almost say there's some dark humor going on in this movie.
Definitely. Dark humor is probably the best way to put it, I would say. Because, I mean, straight up comedy, I don't know if I classified that exactly, but dark comedy... More likely.
Right, like Shoshana, not to skip ahead, but, you know, at the end when she's got the video of her as everyone's burning.
Right, like that's pretty
stuff like that. Like the gore is a little bit dark and comedic, I'd say.
What you bring about Adam Sandler is interesting, though, because I think an actor that does what he could have done a million times better and is actually in this film is Mike Myers. I think he kind of brings that comedic presence. When you see Mike Myers, you know, you think of... You know, Mike Myers is Austin Powers or So I Married an Axe Murderer, things like that. But he's on screen in this film and it fits right. I don't think Adam Sandler would feel that way.
I think what Quentin did with that is he instilled with us just the severity of the situation of what he's representing. World War II.
Yeah.
So take a well-known comedic like Mike Myers.
Yeah.
Right? But he's very seriously involved in this very serious situation. So it's like, he's just trying to like remind us that, yeah, everyone was involved in this situation when it happened. He does instill a little bit of history with us. Like, I know it's a retelling of something that didn't, the way it didn't happen, but I do know that he wanted us to always be, you know, involved with like the seriousness of it too. When I like resort back to the whole comedy statement, I actually wrote some notes here. It's more of like revenge film almost.
Okay. Yeah, definitely.
And there's something really joyful in revenge. So I feel like maybe that's where I'm getting the comedy from.
Okay.
Is because it's like...
Well, I think they kind of play a farce a little bit on like the whole soldier aspect in a way, but I don't necessarily see that as like a bad thing. I think it's... Tarantino's the kind of guy that would find humor in the darkest of things, right? And I think that shines throughout this movie because, I mean, you know, terrible events, but it's the kind of thing if you can't laugh about it or you can't be playful with it, you know, how can you move on?
Yeah.
Especially with a retelling that's not true.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's probably where he is able to get away with so much of this.
Right.
I would say. All right, so where are we leaving off? We're gonna have a bit of a tangent here, maybe.
We were back at the Bastards case. So, what I love about me with my involvement in this film is I actually snuck into this movie like a real badass, like I am. I snuck into. Sure, whatever. But I stuck into this movie, and I didn't actually know anything about this film at all. I'd just seen some trailers or whatever. So I sat front row, and I remember sitting there for that opening dialogue with Hans Landa and being introduced to Shoshana, being so taken back, like, I didn't want that to end. Like, I could have watched Hans Landa, like, talk for days.
Yeah.
And then it coming to the Bastards, and it was just like... I just was so excited to see what was going to happen next. And then a big part of the second chapter is the Bear Jew is introduced. Sergeant Donnie Donowitz, or Eli Roth, the actor. I just remember him, like, there's a part where he comes out of the tunnel. And the cool thing about the tunnel is I know Quentin actually kept him in there for taping. So if they were recording and they didn't get to a scene, they just leave him in there to be dark and scary. So that was kind of nice. Can I tell a little side story?
For sure, go ahead.
So he was on a late night talk show once, and I just became infatuated with Eli Roth instantly. I mean, he has these big arms. I don't know if this is inappropriate to say, but if like I wasn't sitting, panties would have dropped. Like for real talk. Okay.
Big old shaka bra to that.
Big old shaka bra.
It would have happened for real. I became a huge fan of Eli Roth.
Right.
But as he comes out of the tunnel, the click, click, click of the baseball bat and like the long awaited entrance of him, or like immersion from the tunnel.
Yeah. So he was on this late night talk show, and he said when he was in there, what did you do to prepare for being so aggressive when you came out of the tunnel? And he said, well, actually I was dating Peaches at the time.
Really? He was dating Peaches?
He was dating Peaches.
Canadian singer-songwriter Peaches, by the way.
Apparently he was listening to some hardcore heavy metal music, like hitting a bat and stuff, and that's what you hear in the film is like authentic him hitting the wall with his bat. And then he said he put on Nobody's Perfect by Miley Cyrus.
Oh my God.
So he's in the tunnel and like, everybody makes mistakes. Everybody has those days. Super pop song. And he's like, you know what? I'm going with it. And ever since then, Eli Roth has just laughed about it and said, like, that is my hype song when I'm at the gym. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody has those days.
That's like,
amazing. Did Peaches have this on her iPod, or was this on his iPod?
She purposely put that on his iPod. So when he's in there, it just was in the mix.
That's
hilarious.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Shout out to Peaches.
Well, Peaches shout out. Quick shaka bra for Peaches.
Yeah, quick shaka bra for Peach.
Wow.
Is.
That's actually a pretty good side story. I think that tells a lot of his character, though. I mean, he comes out of that tunnel and you're like, you're excited to see what kind of crazy shit this guy's gonna get up to.
Yeah.
Like,
but he's like obviously aggressive and in a weird mood, but he's also like somewhat calm, and it's like he has. Like, he's really happy to be there.
He exudes confidence, right? He's like, here I am. Take me as I am. Like,
well,
he's like petting the face of the captain or whoever's on the ground with his bat.
Yeah, Aldo Rain, and he says, yo, Donnie. He's like, yeah. Like, just totally chill, super calm. And he comes out with this bat, and on the bat, there's signatures strewn about it, right?
Yeah.
And the cool thing about that is in the screenplay, it actually resorts back to him back when he was in America and he was living in this apartment, and he had everyone in his apartment who was Jewish that had somebody they knew that were like killed by the Nazis, taken into prison by the Nazis, had them write their name into the bat. So I feel like he kind of had this bat on his shoulders, but it was this like ode of confidence, like you're doing the right thing. So I don't think he ever had to really question that what he was doing was wrong.
Yeah.
Like he just had all this support behind it from back home, which I thought was really cool.
The bat is a significant part of this film too, because the bat is actually featured in Pulp Fiction when when Bruce Willis's character is trying to save Michael Clark Duncan's character from the basement. In the back of the workshop is actually that bat.
Right.
Fun little Easter egg. Anyways.
Yeah, good old like ode to American lifestyles of a slugger, Louisville slugger too. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think we should start talking about chapter 3 now. Moving on.
Yeah, well, I mean, at the end of during chapter 2, we do get introduced to the Nazis. We get introduced to Hitler.
Right. We see Hitler getting pretty upset. There's kind of a pretty famous Hitler scene in there, is there not?
Yeah, there is. Yeah. Hitler in this movie is depicted in a really interesting way. It's very comical for sure, I would say. Yeah. For the most part. And I think, like, that's the best way you probably should depict Hitler in a film like this.
Honestly, why not?
Yeah, like, why not?
Yeah, I kind of think it's like, people want to know, like, what was Hitler like behind closed doors, you know?
I mean, like, Hitler had a girlfriend, so I don't have a girlfriend, so Hitler's winning right now. Anyways, so moving on to chapter 3 here, we got ourselves... featuring back to Shoshana.
So after you realize after chapter 2, you recognize the fear that the bastards have instilled with the Nazis and Hitler even themselves. We get on to chapter 3, dubbed as German Night in Paris. So we open up with Shoshana Dreyfus, or now Emmanuelle Mimieux. It's her name now. She switched it. She had to. Yeah. I mean, she was in
That's a good name.
difficult circumstances. So switched it up. And she's just up on the marquee of a movie theater, and she's just doing her business.
She's just a worker at the movie theater,
Yeah, and we have this lovely soldier.
Frederick Zoller. Frederick Zoller shows up out of the blue.
Yeah.
Pretty much to hit on Mimieux.
Yeah.
And unsuccessfully, though he doesn't pick up on anything, really.
Yeah.
Like, she's really throwing him some shade and basically saying, don't act like you don't know why, kind of thing. Don't act like you don't know why. I don't want to be your friend and stuff like that. Or like, I don't want to talk to you anymore. Or it's good night. But Frederick has none of it.
Yeah, well,
pretty much.
Even Shoshana, she exudes confidence for sure, definitely. Like she just last time we saw her, she was running away from the Nazis. She fended off that for herself. She is in the city. She has a job. She's being as successful as we possibly could imagine for her after the last time we saw her around. So I think getting into seeing her again on screen, you already know that she's been through some shit and she's ready to like not put up with anything else.
Yeah. And
she, again, like you were mentioning, this is a revenge film, and that's kind of what we get into more here in the rest of the film, as we get Shoshana wanting to get, she wanted to get even.
Yeah, and again, for Quentin, he always has a really strong female
presence,
definitely. And I feel like it's with Shoshana, because maybe she didn't say like a big old fuck you, Frederick Zoller, get on my face, but I mean under those circumstances you understand that she can't, but she did a really great job holding her own, not wanting it. You want to see my papers, she says right away, like, oh, you're interested in me, do you want to see here are my papers, read my papers, please, just go away, leave me alone, let me do my thing. Like she's
treating him like an officer, not like a person, basically.
Right, which she says too. She's like, you're just a uniform to me. Please just go away. Which, I mean, still testy. Like, imagine a Nazi uniform. Like, if anyone was testy to them, they could do whatever they wanted to you. Realistically, it's a scary circumstance to be in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what's the next scene right after that? She ends up in a coffee shop smoking, right, reading a book, and Frederick Zoller makes another appearance.
Stalking her a little bit at this point, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, so he sees her in the window, and she's being romantic and French with her cigarette and her book, and she's reading with her wine or whatever. He walks in to talk with her, and she's like, I don't want anything to do with you, go away. Then he's recognized by other Nazi, like, generals and that come in and say, oh, you're Frederick Zoller, you did all this crazy shit. And then they leave, and then she's like, well, who are you? Just out of general curiosity. Who are you? Why are they so stoked to see you? And he says, well, I was in this bell tower, or no, this nest or something. She says, what is a
Bird's
nest?
nest.
Bird's nest, And then and then she like asks like how many people did you kill? And he's like, well, like 64. The first day, and then 150 the next, and then the rest the next day following, and she's just, her eyes getting bigger each time, and she's just like,
he's just enjoying to talk about himself though, right? Like he's just happy to hear that she's interested. He's like, he doesn't understand why she might be interested. He hasn't picked up on the fact that maybe she doesn't like German soldiers at all as a whole. He's just kind of clueless the whole time, I feel like.
Right, absolutely. And then she's like, oh, those people recognized you. What are you, somebody's son? He's like, well, all of us Nazi soldiers were probably somebody's son at some point.
Joke's on you.
And she's like, no, but really, let's get back down to business. Why do they know who you are? And then after he says that, her being like owner of this theater, she says, they should make a film about you, as a joke, off the cuff.
Right, yeah.
They should make a film. Well, actually, they did. It's called Nation's Pride. And she's like, Nation's Pride's about you. And then she just slam, bang, done. She leaves right away, which is the complete opposite reaction than she had expected. Or he had expected, from anyone, right?
Right, yeah. He was totally confused about it. And then he chooses to make the next move. I guess he's kind of made all these moves, but he chooses to make the next move again and has her picked up and invited, in quotation marks.
Right.
But they end up just forcing her into the car and bringing her to a massive Nazi gathering, basically.
Yeah. Definitely keeps her on edge. I like that. As an audience, it's nice that I was kept on edge too the whole time. Like, oh no, she's in the clearing. But is she though? Because she stuffed him so hard. So
Right.
is she in trouble? And then she gets invited. And she's like, invitation? Question mark? Truly was it though? And then we're back at the lunch table.
You're right. It is kind of nice to be kept on edge because this character seems so confident, so strong, and the next thing you know, she's very vulnerable and comes off as weak almost. And it's kind of making the viewer not 100% sure on how this character is going to progress. And it's nice because we saw it progress so fluently throughout the rest of the film, like up to this point is what I mean. But I think you bring up a good point about being on edge. Like that was definitely something I felt too. And I think her getting invited to this gathering progresses the film into where we're going to head into. And I think that would be a good moment to take a break. And we're going to continue on with the last two chapters of this film, keep talking about Inglourious Basterds, a little bit more Tarantino, get Liz's point of view on this stuff, and we'll
catch you after the break. And we're back.
All right, so we're going to finish up talking some things about Chapter 3 there. There's a few things we kind of didn't talk about we kind of want to follow up on.
Yeah, like a huge thing though, like Hans Landa comes back into the scene, right, with Shoshana. First time that she's seen him since he's eliminated the rest of her family, sorry. So she's sitting there, listening to him. The cool thing about this film, there's a continuative narrative throughout the whole thing. Coincidentals, all that stuff.
Right.
I feel like it's an underlining thing with Quentin. With this film, exactly, this coincidental factor.
Yeah,
so,
everything fits together almost a little too perfectly.
Almost too perfectly. So when he first walks in, you hear that music, right?
Yeah.
And then he looks at her. But he looks at her again, right? And then to her, you're thinking, oh my God, he recognizes her from the first scene. But maybe it's also just him thinking, wow, what a pretty girl sitting beside me right now, right?
There's a lot of questions at that point, but like what kind of confirms that he maybe has a suspicion of who it is the glass of milk he forcibly pushes on her.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah,
that's
think,
implied, but it's never for sure pointed out like, oh, I know you, I'm coming after you. And also, this is where time has actually passed. So we know for a fact that Shoshana's older at this point. She's, done a lot at this point, so we don't exactly know if he even recognizes her or not. But you make a good point about that milk, because that is kind of...
It's maybe to just like
to
push the question. Like maybe Tarantino's just trying to like throw that out there.
But it's reinstated though. He does not. Hans Landa does not recognize her though. That is followed through, right?
Yeah.
So the fact that he like looks at her a second glance, maybe a pretty girl sits down, orders her milk. But I mean, again too, he's very OCD in the fact that he wants things to be exactly as he asks them to be. So a pretty girl, she'll have some milk.
I would say him being OCD is actually his fault as a villain, or fault in his power, because there's a lot of... In the first scene we see him in, there's a lot of like, he commands everything. He knows what he's doing. He knows how he's going to get through in the situation in terms of what he's trying to accomplish. But in this, I feel like he kind of almost trips over himself a little bit.
Yeah.
Not that he necessarily fails, but it's more so, oh, I'm not as calculated as I normally am. I'm worried more about this table. I'm worried more about the surrounding.
Also, he's worried more about himself as the villain. That's his thing. That's his big strong point. He's always continuously worried about himself.
Yeah.
And that's his weakness, essentially, right? Like, he's so worried about himself, he forgets about other things.
Yeah.
So.
And by the end of the movie, that totally sums up his character.
Definitely. And I think that's a really great villain like archetype to have. So a villain who's so good that his only weakness is himself.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy.
So also Joseph Goebbels is introduced. He was a huge Nazi propagandist, like director. That was a real dude that was introduced, right? So in this part too, which is nice of Quentin to reinstate these real people that were, apparent in this time. A comedic too, and I don't know. It was nice to see that though.
Well, the real world elements definitely thrive in this movie. I mean, when they're noticeable, they really come off as strong, and they come off as a point of. I don't think it really takes the viewer out of the experience, and more so keeps them in. It makes them engage, especially if you're a history buff, even more so. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I think we can maybe move on to chapter 4 now.
Yeah.
Keep talking about that. We gotta go to the Bastards.
Yeah, chapter 4 is called Operation Kino, which I love so much because forever I was like, I always want a bar that's in the globe. And Mike Myers is here on set doing it, and he says, yeah, Michael Fassbender, a treat, truly a treat.
Big treat.
Michael Fassbender?
Shaka bra. And that's the last of the cast.
Weirdly enough, though, meant to be Simon Pegg, as you guys all know. Simon Pegg was supposed to play Michael Fassbender's character.
No way.
Truly, yeah.
Really?
No, Simon Pegg was dubbed as this character, essentially. So, I mean...
He would have sucked, honestly.
With him and Adam Sandler,
Awful choice.
No, truly he would have. But him and Adam Sandler, I was like, wait, Quentin, are you trying to get to, like, a weird comedic level here? Like, I didn't really get it at first. But when Michael Fassbender was brought about, though, he wasn't really that popular. You know what I mean? Like, to the common moviegoer.
Yeah, no, this is definitely his... Yeah. In terms of, like, a wider audience, his breakthrough role, for sure.
Yeah, but why Simon Pegg? No one knows. So he comes in. It's this very safe, clean... atmosphere that he's in, and he's introduced to Operation Kino.
And the room is huge. Let's point that out. Like, the room is massive.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like it's just that big to contain some egos in the room.
Right.
Which, I mean, absolutely, because one thing Mike Myers says is, this operation is essentially blow up the bastards. That's what he says, right? To us as a viewer, we get that it means blowing up the bastards, which we met and we love, right? In past chapters. But Michael Fassbender says, yes, blow up the bastards we shall, those Nazi folk, right? So it's two different understandings. The Churchill's in there, too.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Just sitting there, puffing on a cigar. So...
I think you bring up a good point with the room, actually, Daniel. I think the room can become kind of seen as a character in itself, in the way the characters in this film interact with the room and how they're situated, especially at that table. You get these shots of like, oh, here we are sitting, we're having our conversation, but then you get a dialogue, you get a narrative of what's going on behind them the whole time. You kind of get this wide perspective of how big this room is.
They establish the room. They establish like the older gentleman. Sorry, what was his name in the back? Churchill. And like sitting by the piano seems a little bit insignificant in the beginning, and then becomes very important towards the end when he says, "Brief him."
Now that we bring this up, actually, I'm really viewing this scene similar to like how the Hateful Eight is actually framed. The Hateful Eight is framed in a similar way, almost how that cabin it seems so large, and it becomes its own character too throughout the film. In fact, there's even a piano that becomes important. I don't know if that's just a weird coincidence, but I like to think that maybe Tarantino saw this one scene and realized how much he could get done with one room and use that for another extension of himself. Hard to say exactly.
To me, though, I just felt a vast security, though. With this huge room, all I was thinking was we're safe, it's open, it's not occupied by soldiers hiding. This was just a big, safe room with three gentlemen having a totally coy conversation about what's about to go down.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. And the conversation they have, it goes in so many directions so quick, and I think you kind of get a little bit of a juxtaposition between different kinds of characters and different kinds of development that happens so fast. And I think that's what this film does a really great job of, as you were saying, about how every character in this movie has its own purpose.
Oh, absolutely. So Michael Fassbender comes in. He says, you know what? I reviewed movies in my past life. I have this prominent accent. I'm very prestigious, blah, 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 blah.
Well kept, for sure.
And then Mike Myers is like, yeah, but does he know? And then Churchill's like, yeah, brief him. Here he goes.
Yeah.
So they do it, and then they realize Operation Kino is in effect, and Bridget von Hammersmark is the one that's going to lead them the way. She's a spy with them. Yeah, absolutely. She's a spy with them, a German actress, and he's well familiar with being a film critic, as he was, to help them with this next planning. And that's essentially what that's it. That's the end of the chapter.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah, pretty
You're
much.
a critic, but you know how to pretend you're a German soldier. That's fine. Good. Done. Done and done.
Yeah.
But I almost feel like they're so cocky in that room. Like and that's almost a thing that leads to the failure of Fassbender.
Absolutely, because they're so safe.
Definitely.
They're so safe. They're not in that territory yet. They're so safe.
Exactly.
They're
Whereas
situated where
the
they are, and they don't
bastards
really...
are there, and they know how to take care of themselves in that environment.
Yeah, and I don't think they know the severity of what could happen to them.
Right.
They're situated in one spot, and they are only aware of their own capabilities. Not everyone else is in the room.
Yeah. And
but then quickly you're reminded by Aldo Rain. He's like, we're fighting in a fucking basement. And you're reminded, wow, these people that have lived in this territory for so long are like, this is ridiculous. What are you guys doing? Blah, blah, blah. Like, Hugo Stiglitz is question, like, our little man walks over to him and is like, Hugo Stiglitz, are you going to remain calm? You know, like, it questions all this weird stuff. And then you're reminded these people have been living way safer than the rest of these characters have been, right?
Yeah, I think you're right about that. And I think Fassbender's character might end up being kind of... He comes off a little bit weak in a way. Like, would you agree with that?
I would say weak. I mean, because he's been safe for too long. He's been thrown in the trenches for long enough. Yeah. You know? Not at all.
Yeah, he's too shrouded in his own success.
But
right?
Mike Myers' character, on the other hand, I think is a lot more fun.
Yeah, like, way more fun. I almost wish he was also there, for this last scene. I wish he was there, too. He almost had a better understanding because Churchill was like, yes, brief him, let him go, let him do it. Yeah.
Another example of how the bastards take no risk, though, is after all that shit goes down in the basement of the bar, and they take Bridget von Hammersmark back to, some doctor, Aldo shoves the doctor out of the way and puts his finger in her wound like, are you fucking us right now, or what's going on?
Yeah, well, here's the thing, essentially, underlining theme of this whole film is coincidences.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. So they're like, we're gonna fight in a basement. We're gonna meet our like double spy here. Yeah. And they do, but she just happens to be with somebody who just had a son birthed, and all this whole Nazi army is down there with her.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
just a coincidence that there's a group of Nazis there.
Yeah.
And then that the captain, like that captain around the corner is there, right?
You're right.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think you're talking about coincidence here, and I think another element of this film you were talking about was revenge. And I think a time when revenge can best be captured is when coincidences are occurring.
Yeah.
That's the best time you can take advantage of a situation that you never realized you'd have the opportunity to take advantage of.
Yeah, but Alto Rain questions before he gets into the bar, he says Bridget von Hammersmark. Oh, yeah. Maybe she's defying us. Maybe she's lying. So, Michael Fassbender, a couple of them walk downstairs and they stop because they see all these other Nazi soldiers down there. And they're questioning it right away. But you know what? She did a great job. Totally. She did. She leans back and she says, "Oh, my leaves or whatever.
Yeah.
Come down, my lovelies. Come hang out with me." She did the best she could. So it's hard to really defy her in that manner because, stuff like that happens.
Yeah, it was more of a collection of things. Like it was, the Brits overlooking some details, putting too much trust into Bridget.
True.
Fassbender being a little bit too cocky. Don't worry, it'll all work out. She's not a spy, but she's been on with us for 2 years. Like, don't worry.
Yeah.
There's too much dismissal of detail.
Yeah, but it's not the first time. I know Michael Fassbender. His name is Hitchcock's, I guess, in this film. It's not the first time that he's dubbed for the three things, because at first he says 3 whiskeys, but he doesn't put his hand up at all, right? So he doesn't call him. If he would have put his hands up to do the 3, somebody would have slapped him down and been like, "Hey, quit it!
Right.
It's not the way we do the 3s."
Yeah.
So it's all.
But he's living on the edge with that, even though
carefully thought out. I don't know. But again, too, in that scene, he gets way too cocky.
Yeah, and you know what? I think he even brings up back with Mike Myers, like, "Oh, you can speak German excellently," as he pours his drink at the Globe. Right? Like, you know, it's like, yeah, sure, he can speak German, great, but he's got a little bit of an accent, and he doesn't know what the German 3 is. Like, his ego is a little bit big in that instance, too.
Yeah. So you're always questioning Bridget von Hammersmark. You're always questioning her appearance, because even I, when I was watching this initially, I was like, who is she for? You didn't really know. Until it comes to the scene where, obviously, Hugo Stieglitz is trying to hold back his rank, right? And then eventually it comes to a point where it's like they boom, boom, boom. There's 3 of them down. Then you've Aldo Rain upstairs being like, can we come down?
Right, yeah.
Is anyone alive? And then you hear from Hammersmark again. She's, I'm alive! Help me! And then that poor man, which I can't remember, who just gave birth to a son.
Wilhelm?
Wilhelm.
Yeah,
Wilhelm. My name's Wilhelm. I just gave birth to a son. Please, whatever. Whatever.
Yeah, the stakes get so high all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Something. It's like this gestalt, creation of the sum of small parts, essentially. This scene kind of keeps building and building and building until kind of this big canvas of what's going on right now. Everything's building into a different way, and then all the pieces come together. And we get a batshit crazy scene going on in this basement.
Yeah.
And Operation Kino's in effect.
Absolutely. So eventually, Hammersmark exists. She says, I'm alive, save me. So Aldo Rain comes down, whatever, does his business.
Right.
Saves her, and then we're on to the final scene.
Yeah. And I think that last scene is probably one of the more significant Tarantino scenes in recent memory. I think maybe on paper it might sound a little potentially dull. Maybe not as exciting as other Tarantino scenes, but in terms of straight dialogue and in terms of the thought and planning, the threes and the little bits that are continually coming up towards each and every character's viewpoint, I think it's a really great way to describe this film in general. Everything we've talked about up to this point is in that one scene.
Yeah, even the punches, that captain that comes out from the corner is punching Stieglitz, right, multiple times, and every time he's got this look like he wants to do something. And I think, am I crazy to say that he might punch him 3 times? Should we fact check
essentially,
this?
because it goes back to when he was being whipped, right?
Yeah.
And when he was captured.
He would go for a 3-peat for sure, I think.
Oh, for sure. But he always kept his cool. But then you bring in these amateurs, like our Michael Fassbender friend, Hitchcock. You bring him in as amateur that can't even dub a 3 in the right way.
Yeah.
Right? So this poor guy who's doing his best to make it happen, and then... Yeah, it's very essential, I think, for this film. This is a very essential point in this film, for sure.
Well, and it comes up to the grand finale, essentially. I mean, at this point, this is our second time seeing the Bastards. We've seen Shoshana's storyline and Christoph Waltz's character storyline for 2 times as well. And I feel like this movie kind of has, not necessarily 2 vibes, but definitely 2 sections. And we're coming up to the 5th chapter of this film, and that's where...
Brings it all together.
Exactly, things come together. And this final chapter has a funny title. It's titled
Revenge of the Giant Face. Which we get because Shoshana's like, you know what? We're going down in flames. Marcel, my love, we're all going to go down in flames together. We're going to make this just so intense. Yeah. So we're going to make a film. We're going to video to it. So they're going to be showing the short feature Nation's Pride. Yeah. Which was directed by Eli Roth. Yeah. Yeah. He actually directed this film. It's shown very minimally. In extended versions of the film, you see a lot more of it.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, you do. But, yeah.
It's in the background. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely setting the tone of what's really going on.
Yeah, so, Shoshana has made this film. They have all of the film dubbed so that she's going to come in at some point of the film near the end when all these very infamous, very famous, very leading men of the Nazi army are going to be present
including the Fuhrer, which we find out in the hospital.
Which we do later. Right. Yes, we do.
Well, her plan is to basically gather as many of these men into an area she's familiar with to conduct a situation that she kind of has complete control over at this point.
Yeah, she's going to be like, see ya. But she doesn't know anything essentially about the Bastards. She doesn't know anything about the Bastards.
No.
So back to Operation Kino. Blow up the Bastards, Mike Myers says. And realistically, you got a couple of the Bastards that have, ammunition around their legs. Yeah. And they walk in and they're trying to portray these filmmakers, film takers and that. And this is when Brad Pitt says the original director of Inglourious Basterds, Gorlomi, whatever he tries to say it. He said Gorlomi. It's an ode to the original director of Original Bastards way back in the day.
Yeah.
That's what
the macaroni spaghetti.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There you go. Well, I think this scene is a nice way to like really end off the film, because not only do we get to see Shoshana kind of get what she has been planning for the majority of this movie, and what she, I guess you were saying, revenge. She's getting her revenge. The bastards are getting their revenge, and we've seen the Nazis' perspective, and we have all these high-class, powerful men and women in this building who think, oh, it's just another night at the movies. Today's going to be a great evening.
Yeah.
Come check out, have some popcorn.
And the sacrifice that happened in the bar is now justified.
Yeah,
Exactly.
What a great ode to Bowie, too, though, because he comes in there with a prominent song, and I've been putting out fire with gasoline. Yeah. Good one.
R.I.P. Bowie.
Yeah, so Shoshana's getting ready to this song by Bowie, which I love so much. Let's shout out to Bowie here. She gets ready. She's prominent. She's like, I'm the strong female adventurer. Here we go.
Yeah.
I'm making this happen. It's going. It doesn't even acknowledge the presence at any point of the bastards, which I love that Quentin does that. Doesn't even shake hands with them. Doesn't even see that they're there.
It's true, and again, that is coincidence, right? Coming up to this film, you nailed it. I think you got it. For
I think I maybe did.
I think you maybe nailed it. The coincidence theme is definitely
coincidence is a strong theme.
And I think it's cool to see these almost like these characters who we're rooting for the entire time get these coincidental breaks, because I think in other films where, oh, what a coincidence, as if that happened, as if, oh, are you serious? But in this movie, they're trying to kill the Nazis, so we have no sympathy for what this coincidence is leading towards. And I think that projects this film into a way that doesn't make it seem cliche. I mean, let's think of like a shitty romantic comedy where everything happens out of coincidence. It feels less effective than this film does, because we're rooting for these characters and we're learning all their backstories and we're learning how they're going to succeed. And I think all these people coming to the same theater, and there's a scene where they just happen to like end up in the hallway together. They're like, "Yo, what are you doing?" It's kind of like magical.
Yeah, it just shows how
point.
coincidence can like come together in a beautiful way sometimes.
Yeah.
And it starts and ends with coincidence.
So they're all there, and then our Bridget von Hammersmark is there, and then we bring him back in Hans Landa, right? He comes in, he sees the beautiful lady, and then it goes back to when he was inspecting the bar scene.
Yes.
He picks up a napkin that has her kiss on it and a signature and a heel that she left, and he's like, there's one body that's missing and it's hers. So she hobbles, stomps in with her weird casted heel boot.
Right.
Asks to speak with her separately, which I love, and then he sits there again, and we're back to the first scene once again.
Yeah, exactly.
He sits her down, he sympathizes with her, he levels with her, we're on the same page, but also then I know you're wrong, and he sends that to her, and then she has no words, and he goes to strangle her, right?
Yeah.
The cool thing about this too is I like that Quentin, he's adapted since his younger films. He loves to be a part of his films, right? That's acknowledged, right?
He loves the cameo for sure.
Right. So he's down strangling her. So the scene shoots to just the hand strangling her. Those are Quentin's hands.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the cool thing about that, so Van Hammersmark is being strangled. So Quentin switches out his hands with Hans Landa and strangles her. So you can see Quentin's hands. So
wow, I had no idea. That's crazy.
It's pretty awesome. So Quentin's like, yeah, this is my film. Fuck this. I'm going to strangle her. So he just like strangles her. You can see it. I hope you guys all go back and watch to see that. It's pretty good. It's great.
That'll be a third viewing.
Yeah. Strangles her. She's done. She's out of the picture. But then it's so serious. Everyone is just like has their business to do when they're at it, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So you can't really feel any sympathy though for the bastards as you want to, because they know they're gonna blow themselves up, but also, Shoshana has this plan to blow up the whole theater. But they have totally sacrificed themselves. They're in this, and all you're thinking is Hans Landa is also in this.
Yeah.
But he's not, because why? He grabs Aldo Rain, he takes him away, he leaves knowing full well that the theater's gonna blow up. So that's when you know that Hans Landa has an alternate agenda at this point. So he takes him, he sits him down for questioning. He says, this is what I want. I want, whatever, island shit, house, meh, whatever, all the things. Because I know, that that hair is gonna be blown up essentially.
And I think this shows how persuasive of a man he really is. I mean, we get that idea throughout the film, but eventually he's like, oh, by the way, I want everything under the sun. Can you please give that to me? Like,
but
does not want to be tried as a war criminal, wants to basically just like get out scot-free and ditch this whole life. And
but Aldo Rain is like, sure, whatever, I don't give a fuck, because he's in this like snorting his tobacco. He doesn't care. Yeah. He is an Inglourious Bastard through and through. He doesn't care. Yeah, I'll promise you all the shit you want. I'm gonna also headbutt you as hard as I can. Yeah. I'm not afraid of you. He isn't. No. Essentially, you know, Brad Pitt's character, he's not afraid at any moment. So he gets promised all these things, which is so great. We go back to the theater. You get to see it, you know, you see the giant face, and Shoshana's like, this is my face. You've done all these tormented things, and you're going down now. And they do. And then you get Eli Roth, you know, they're bastards and that, just shooting them up. They don't care.
Yeah, you come back to the bear Jew. It's just so happy, and he's only aiming at the Fuhrer the whole time.
You almost want to feel some sympathy for them, but you don't, because you know that essentially they're there because they want to be there, right? Yeah. So they're tearing it up. They're doing their thing. And then we come to our final, you know, all that's done and said for.
Well, I think what's really cool is, like, Tarantino's basically constructing a film within a film at this point. I mean, we have a film playing on screen in the film. Meanwhile, there's literally a constructed, like, orchestra of, like, terror being organized on the sidelines and behind the scenes. So we're getting, like, movie on movie on movie at this point. And, like, as a viewer, you're trying to concentrate on, like, different plot settings. You're trying to figure out what's going to happen to each character. But as you're saying, it all comes down to one thing. Yeah. Shoshana. What did the movie start with?
Yeah,
Shoshana.
Well, the sweetest thing, too, you go to the outside of the theater auditorium and you see the swastika, the flag of the swastika on it fall down. Apparently that was not supposed to happen.
Oh, really?
But there was so much heat from the fire initially that the flag fell down. And Quentin was just like hype on that because perfect, right?
Couldn't be any perfect.
Natural, just like that. So then we come back to this, you know, they're driving. They have Hans Landa. He's made his agreement with Alton Rain.
Yeah, what's going to happen at this point? Because I still don't believe.
We don't know.
We don't know what's going to go on.
Hans Landa? What is he doing?
Pretty much.
So they're asking him again. They question him again. They say, "What are you going to do when you get back to your little like estate?" And they're, "You're going to take off your uniform." You know what? I'm not okay with that. And you know, he engraves that swastika into his forehead again. And at the very end, he says, "You know what? This might be my masterpiece." The reason why that stuck with me so much is because I truly feel like, I know there's so many people I know who haven't seen this movie or maybe jumped to the next film of Quentin's, but to me, this was his masterpiece. The whole cast ensemble, everything. So when he said, "This might be my masterpiece," it really stuck with me because I was like, yes. Well,
that's Quentin. That's Quentin saying that. Like, he wrote that line, therefore he means it. This is my masterpiece. Up to this point, this is my masterpiece.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a powerful line. And what I was going to point out, Liz, I am blown away at your love and passion for this film. Me and Dan are sitting back here a little bit right now, just kind of like, yo.
It's awesome to hear your opinion on it.
No, but honestly, you got great insight. And I think calling this a masterpiece, I would say is fair. I think this film is definitely a really strong depiction of what Tarantino is capable of. And I think it's kind of in its own category. I've never really seen a movie like this. I mean, there's a lot of people who've tried to emulate Tarantino's style, and some have failed, some have done fairly well. But you haven't seen a movie that kind of plays with a similar tone as this one does. And calling it his masterpiece, just kind of like from Brad Pitt's character's perspective, pretty funny, I'd say. Like, very conniving.
There was a writer that recently met Quentin Tarantino, and they were in a bar together, and he brought up that line, and Quentin was like, truly in that defining moment, I thought that was my masterpiece. And I mean, the highest grossing of all the films he had done up until that point, until Django. Django then triumphed after that. Yeah. But yeah, no, it stuck with me, and there's a lot of great things with this film, for sure.
Yeah, totally. And I think it making so much money and grossing and reaching a wider audience, I think has allowed for him to kind of, you know, be more prevalent in the public eye. I think that allows him to keep making films. And I mean, we see Django came out, like 3 years later, I believe. And that was a huge film, obviously. I mean, nominated for Best Picture. And I think we were talking earlier about how that was a film that felt more accessible.
Way more accessible.
So I don't know if that's it could be a negative, could be a positive thing. But I think him succeeding so highly with this film, probably unexpectedly to a degree. That being said, like, if you put Brad Pitt in any movie, you usually get a good box office turnout. But, I mean, that's neither here nor there.
It definitely pushed Tarantino in a new direction for filmmaking. Like you said, the new cinematographer. I think all those elements, finding those actors at the right time, at the right moment, totally like helped him move forward a little bit.
Well, I've always read Tarantino talking about how he will admit, like, I'm not very good at everything. Honestly, I dip my feet into things here and there. What I'm good at, though, is having a vision, and I know how to articulate that well. I'm able to tell, you know, I need someone who can do this the best. I need someone who can do this the best. I can't do this all on my own. I've tried to do that and I've failed. So what Tarantino does is he's like, I know how to describe what I want as well as I can, and because of that, I produce a quality product time and time again. And I think, obviously, that came across here. Inglourious Basterds was a treat to watch again. Haven't seen it in a little while, so I was excited when Liz wanted to come on the cast and do this movie. We invited her. We said, like, what's your favorite movie? What can we do? And she said, you guys already did a Tarantino one. Like, are you sure you want to do another one? We're like, definitely. Want to do one you're passionate about.
How can we say no?
And we're so excited we did, because honestly, you killed it, and we're going to have you on again another time. We'll do another movie, and it'll be a good time.
Can I just throw back real quick, though?
Please do.
Look back, though, also to, like, the whole soundtrack throughout, sound mixing. I mean, it was nominated a lot of times, but when I was in theater, if you ever get the chance and there's an auditorium theater that's playing it again, go listen to it with the big sound, because he, as a past dancer, I really hit, like, when it comes to music and stuff like that. I get it. And he just did that, and almost... It was really great. So there's that. It was the cast. It was the cinematography.
Right.
It was the sound mixing, the writing. All of it was so beautiful. So if you can just like go back, watch it again, second viewing of the film.
Yeah,
do that.
Of course. We'll do that. Thanks for the plug.
Do that. Do that. Just honestly, just sit and treat yourself. Truly. Yeah. Just that's all it is.
I mean, I think you said it best there. I think that is the qualities of a master work. And I think we've seen Tarantino kind of, excel in certain qualities like that in his past work. But up to this point, when he made Inglourious Basterds, that was him saying, I know how to utilize all of those categories to the best. Here it is. Here it is on the table. This is my final showing. I think there was even things saying like, I'm going to stop making films after a while after this. He kind of thought that was maybe going to be his last film for a bit. But then next thing you know, after success and after being able to have more creative drive and creative opportunities with Django and other, Hateful Eight just came out last year.
Yeah, and then again too, I became an avid fan after this film, and I think the biggest thing is Quentin wrote this movie over 10 years prior to the movie that was actually made, and I remember him sitting down for an interview and being like, I remember sitting and seeing the cast in their seats and being like, wow, it's such a treat to meet these characters in real life that have been in my head. And as a wannabe screenwriter as myself, it was so beautiful to hear that, to be like, wow, he cares about these. These are real people. Right. So we brought these people to life after 10 years of originally writing them. And I thought that was, it's very cool. It makes you really appreciate the film aspect of it. But yeah, these people are real in this guy's head, and he's lending out, these abilities to other people that he knows that can make them come so prominent, come so true. So that's really good. I
think you're right. I mean, each of these characters breathe their own life. I feel like not one of them really feels like the actor, especially I would say Brad Pitt's the most notable, because he's obviously he's the highest profile actor in this film. Except maybe BJ Novak, but and then I think I don't know. I think this movie always really struck a chord with me, because I knew about Tarantino growing up before this film and whatnot, but this was the first movie that I heard people who I wouldn't expect to be into Tarantino films talking about. Yeah. That's when I noticed that it was hitting a wider audience. Mm-hmm. I think Kill Bill was probably his most notable work before that, besides maybe Pulp Fiction, but I think you're right. I think him taking time to realize every inch of this film could be his masterwork. I feel like he had that from the get-go. He knew what he was doing. Yeah,
but how notable to say it was such a treat to meet these characters that I created in real life. And it's so giving, so thankful. He's like, wow, what a treat to meet these people that I created. Thank you to everyone involved.
Right. I mean, if I met BJ Novak, I'd be stoked too. So, I mean... Anyways, I digress. Anyways, I think we're probably going to end it here. Liz, thank you so much for coming on the cast. We love you so much.
It's a
Me
pleasure.
and Dan had a great time.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me.
Anytime.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Anytime.
As always, check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, our website. And we'll catch you guys next time.
See you later.